27 rejections, I whispered, staring at the email that had just arrived. Number 28. My kitchen table was covered with sketches, fabric swatches, and a half-empty cup of coffee that had long gone cold. Outside, Chicago's winter darkness had already settled in, though it was barely 5 p.m. The rejection stung more than usual. While we appreciate your innovative approach, Bloom & Wilde isn't the right fit for our retail portfolio at this time. I closed my laptop, rubbing my temples. 3 years of pouring every spare moment into Stitch & Story, my line of customizable, ethically sourced throw pillows and home textiles. And what did I have to show for it? A spare bedroom converted into a studio, an online shop with modest sales, and an inbox full of rejections from every major retailer I'd approached. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. Don't forget, dinner at Emma's tonight. 7 p.m. sharp. Everyone will be there. I groaned. My sister Emma's perfectly coordinated dinner parties were legendary in our family, showcasing her executive chef husband Antoine's culinary skills and their picture-perfect life in their North Shore mansion. Tonight was their annual holiday gathering, where the Collins family tradition was to share our annual victories before dessert. My other sister, Vanessa, would undoubtedly dominate with tales of her surgical practice's expansion and her husband, Jacob's law firm partnership. My brother Michael would boast about his tech startup's latest funding round. And my parents would beam proudly at their accomplished children. Well, most of them. Then there was me, Claire Collins, 34 years old, who had walked away from a promising marketing career 2 years ago to pursue that little crafting hobby, as my father dismissively called it. I glanced at the 3 large orders I needed to complete before Christmas. At least some people appreciated my work. With a sigh, I saved the half-finished design on my tablet and went to get ready. Emma's home was a showcase of modern luxury, all clean lines and strategic lighting. Holiday decorations were tastefully arranged, professionally done, of course. The moment I stepped inside, the familiar feeling of inadequacy washed over me. "Claire, finally, everyone's already here," Emma said, air-kissing my cheeks. She wore a black cocktail dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Her dark hair swept into an elegant updo. "Sorry, I was finishing up some work," I replied, handing her the bottle of wine I'd brought. Emma examined the label with barely concealed disappointment. "How thoughtful. Come join everyone in the living room." I followed her through the expansive foyer, past the 12-foot Christmas tree adorned with color-coordinated ornaments, and into the living room where my family was gathered around a roaring fire. There she is. My father stood to greet me, martini in hand. Richard Collins, retired investment banker, still commanding rooms at 70. "We were beginning to think you got lost in a fabric store." Everyone laughed as if this was the height of wit. "Hi, Dad." I kissed his cheek, breathing in the familiar scent of expensive cologne. "Mom, you look beautiful." My mother, Catherine, elegant as always in emerald green, smiled warmly. "Thank you, darling. How's your business going?" The slight pause before business wasn't lost on me. "It's going well," I said with forced brightness. "Holiday orders are keeping me busy." "That's nice, dear," she replied, clearly having expected nothing more. Michael, my younger brother by 2 years, was sprawled on the sofa, one arm around his girlfriend Sophia, whom he'd met at some tech conference in Austin. "Hey, sis, still threading needles for fun and profit?" "Something like that," I replied, accepting the glass of wine Vanessa had handed me. Vanessa, ever the peacemaker despite her surgical precision in the operating room, squeezed my arm. "I still love that table runner you made me for my birthday. Everyone comments on it. When they can see it under all those medical journals," Jacob, her husband, added with a smirk. He was a corporate attorney with a shark smile and personality to match. Antoine emerged from the kitchen, still wearing his apron despite looking runway-ready otherwise. "Dinner is served, everyone." As we moved to the dining room, Emma's hand caught my wrist. "Claire, I seated you between Mom and Michael. And please," she lowered her voice, "let's keep the craft talk to a minimum tonight. Dad's bringing his golf buddy Harold Wellington. He's recently divorced, runs that commercial real estate firm downtown." I stared at her. "Are you seriously trying to set me up right now?" Emma shrugged, unembarrassed. "You're not getting any younger, and clearly this pillow phase isn't leading anywhere. Harold is very successful." Before I could respond, she glided away to direct everyone to their seats. The dining table was a masterpiece of holiday elegance: fine china, crystal glasses, and a centerpiece of white amaryllis and silver baubles. I found my assigned seat, noting with irritation that Harold was directly across from me. Harold Wellington was exactly what I expected. 50-ish, with the overconfident manner of someone used to being the wealthiest person in any room. He didn't wait long before turning the conversation my way. "So, Claire, your father tells me you left Axis Marketing a while back. What are you up to these days?" All conversations paused. This was always the moment I dreaded at family gatherings. "I run my own business," I said, lifting my chin slightly. "Stitch and Story. We create custom textile home goods using ethically sourced materials and traditional techniques with modern designs." "She makes pillows," my father translated with a dismissive wave. "It's a little side business. A hobby that's taking up her prime career years," Emma added, smiling to soften the blow. Harold nodded with the condescending sympathy of someone looking at a failed endeavor. Handicrafts. My ex-wife was into knitting for a while. Made some interesting Christmas sweaters." Laughter rippled around the table. "It's not a hobby," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "I have clients across the country. My sales increased 40% this year." 40% of very little is still very little," Michael quipped. Antoine served the main course with professional flourish. Herb-crusted rack of lamb with pomegranate reduction, accompanied by truffle risotto, and glazed winter vegetables. "This looks amazing, Antoine," I said, grateful for the distraction. "It should be. It's the same menu he's featuring at Maison next week for $200 a plate," Emma beamed, naming her husband's Michelin-starred restaurant. As everyone exclaimed over the food, the conversation mercifully shifted to Michael's latest app development, then to Vanessa's new minimally invasive surgical technique. I focused on my plate, the lamb turning to ash in my mouth despite its perfect preparation. "Speaking of success," my father announced as Antoine cleared the plates, "I think it's time for our annual tradition. Who wants to start sharing their victories for the year?" Vanessa raised her glass. "Well, my practice has expanded to 2 new locations, and we've brought on 3 new surgeons. Jacob's firm just won that class action suit against Pharmatech, and we've finally finished renovating the lake house." Approving murmurs circled the table. Michael was next. "We've secured our Series B funding, $20 million. We're expanding to Europe next quarter, and I'm being featured in Next Tech's 30 Under 40 list in January." My father clapped him on the shoulder. "That's my boy," Emma smiled. Antoine's restaurant earned its 2nd Michelin star, and my event planning company handled the governor's charity gala. Plus, we've finally started the adoption process. This news earned gasps and congratulations. I reached across to squeeze Emma's hand, genuinely happy for her after years of fertility struggles. Then every eye turned to me. I took a deep breath. Stitch and Story has had some exciting developments. I've introduced a new customizable collection that allows clients to incorporate meaningful fabrics, like baby clothes or loved ones' garments, into memory pillows and quilts. I've hired 2 part-time assistants to help with production, and I hesitated, then decided to share my one piece of truly exciting news. I've been invited to showcase my work at the National Crafts Exhibition in New York this spring. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, my mother spoke. "That sounds nice, dear." Very crafty, Jacob added with a smirk. My father cleared his throat. Claire, don't you think it's time to consider returning to the corporate world? Jim Henley at Proximity Marketing asks about you every time we golf. He'd take you back in a heartbeat. I don't want to go back, I said, feeling the familiar tightness in my chest. I'm building something that matters to me. But darling, my mother interjected. You had such promise. You were the youngest marketing director at Axis. Now you're just sewing pillows in your apartment. They're not just pillows, I insisted, my voice rising slightly. Each piece tells a story. I work with sustainable materials, partner with women's cooperatives for specialty fabrics. While living off your savings, my father interrupted. That marketing career could have set you up for life. Instead, you're what? 34 and essentially unemployed. I am employed. I employ myself, and now 2 others. Harold, who had been watching this exchange with interest, offered what he clearly thought was helpful insight. The hobby business model can be charming, but it's rarely sustainable long-term. Perhaps think of it as a creative outlet while pursuing more substantive opportunities? I set down my napkin. It's not a hobby business, and Claire makes lovely things, Vanessa interrupted, always the mediator. Those pillows in my guest room get so many compliments. Yes, they're very colorful, Emma added, with faint praise. Antoine reappeared with dessert, an elaborate bûche de Noël that would have impressed even Paul Hollywood. As he described the 7 different components of the dessert, I felt myself fading into the background again, just Claire with her cute little pillow business, the family disappointment. After dinner, as everyone moved back to the living room for coffee and digestives, I found myself cornered by Harold. Your father mentioned you might be interested in exploring opportunities at Wellington Properties, he said, handing me his business card. We're expanding our marketing department. Someone with your background at Axis could be valuable. I stared at the embossed card. Did my father put you up to this? Harold's smile didn't reach his eyes. Let's just say he's concerned about your future. A woman your age should be building something substantial, not playing with fabric scraps. Something snapped inside me. Mr. Wellington, I appreciate your concern, but my age is perfectly suited to running my own successful business, which grossed over $150,000 this year with a 38% profit margin. Those fabric scraps have been featured in 3 design magazines, and I've just secured a licensing deal that I haven't even told my family about yet. His eyebrows shot up. Licensing deal? I immediately regretted revealing this. Yes, now. If you'll excuse me, I need to speak with my sister. I walked away, heart pounding. The licensing deal with Homestyle Collections was still under wraps. The contracts weren't finalized, and I'd planned to keep it quiet until everything was certain. But Harold's condescension had pushed me over the edge. As I helped Emma load the dishwasher, a task that made me feel useful while escaping further career interrogation, my phone buzzed with an email notification. Subject: Homestyle Collections contract. Countersignaty nearly dropped the Waterford crystal I was rinsing. With shaking hands, I opened the email. Dear Ms. Collins, attached, please find the fully executed licensing agreement between Stitch and Story and Homestyle Collections. We're thrilled to move forward with featuring your designs in our spring catalog and television segment. As discussed, the initial order of 5,000 units will proceed to production immediately. Your contact at the production company will reach out shortly regarding the filming schedule for the Homestyle Network feature in January. Welcome to the Homestyle family. Sincerely, Lawrence Chen, Director of Product Acquisition, Homestyle Collections. I leaned against the counter, lightheaded. It was real. After countless rejections, someone had finally seen the value in my work. Not just anyone, but Homestyle. Collections, with their massive catalog distribution and daily television program reaching millions of viewers. Claire, You look like you've seen a ghost." Emma was staring at me, a stack of dessert plates in her hands. I just got some good news," I stammered, still processing. "Oh? Did Harold offer you a job already?" She smiled knowingly. I took a deep breath. Should I tell her? After years of dismissal and condescension from my family, part of me wanted to keep this victory to myself until they saw my products on national television. Another part desperately wanted validation from the people who mattered most to me. Actually, Ladies, we're opening the good cognac in the living room," my father called from the doorway. "Claire, Harold is quite impressed with you. He's interested in continuing the conversation over dinner next week." Emma nudged me. "See? I told you this would be good for you." I looked between them, my father's expectant expression, Emma's smug, matchmaking satisfaction, and made my decision. "Thank you, but I'll be too busy next week. Production deadlines." I slipped my phone back into my pocket. My father's face fell. "Claire, you can't keep passing up real opportunities for this diversion." "It's not a diversion, Dad. It's my career." "A career has a future, Claire," he said with the same tone he'd used when explaining why my childhood dream of becoming an artist wasn't practical. "What's the future in throw pillows?" The validation I'd felt moments ago from the email withered under his dismissal. What was the point? Even with this breakthrough, they'd find a way to minimize it, to see it as less than. "You're right," I said quietly. What was I thinking? I followed them back to the living room, the weight of my secret success sitting strangely in my chest. As Harold launched into a story about his latest property acquisition, I sipped the expensive cognac and made appropriate noises of interest while my mind raced ahead. Let them think what they wanted. In 3 months, my designs would be in homes across America. My name would be associated with one of the biggest home goods retailers in the country. And maybe then, just maybe, they'd see that my little side business was anything but. The evening finally wound down, and as I was preparing to leave, Vanessa pulled me aside. "Hey, you okay? You seemed a million miles away after dessert." I hesitated. Of all my siblings, Vanessa had been the most supportive, in her own way. "I'm fine. Just tired of defending my choices every family gathering." She squeezed my arm. "For what it's worth, I think what you're doing is brave. Not many people have the courage to pursue what they love. Even if it's just a cute little hobby business." I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. "Is that what you think it is?" "No, but it's what everyone else thinks." Vanessa studied me closely. "You know, I didn't become a surgeon to impress Dad, even though it did. I did it because I couldn't imagine doing anything else. Can you imagine going back to corporate marketing?" I shook my head. "Then who cares what they think? Success isn't just one thing, Claire." As I drove home through Chicago's glittering winter streets, Vanessa's words echoed in my head. Success isn't just one thing. But recognition from my family, the people who were supposed to believe in me unconditionally, still mattered, whether I wanted it to or not. I parked outside my vintage 3-flat in Bucktown. My apartment wasn't grand like Emma's house or sleek like Vanessa's downtown condo, but it was mine. And I'd turned the second bedroom into a studio that brought me more joy than my corner office at Axis ever had. The Christmas lights I'd strung around my windows winked cheerfully as I approached. Inside, I kicked off my heels and immediately changed into comfortable clothes. The living room was cozy, decorated with art from local creators, and yes, plenty of my own textiles, the very ones my family dismissed as crafts. I poured myself a glass of wine, not as expensive as Harold's cognac, but perfectly satisfying, and opened my laptop to read the contract again, this time allowing myself to feel the full weight of the achievement. 5,000 units, a feature on the Homestyle network. My designs would be in their spring catalog, which went to over 3 million households. "Not bad for a hobby," I whispered. To the empty room, I opened a new email and began typing, "Dear Lawrence, thank you for sending the countersigned agreement. I'm thrilled to be joining the Homestyle family and look forward to beginning production immediately." Tomorrow, I would call the two women who helped me with production and tell them we needed to scale up significantly. I'd contact my fabric suppliers about larger orders. I'd begin planning for what came next after the initial launch. But tonight, I allowed myself to savor this moment of vindication, even if it was private for now. In 3 months, everyone, including my skeptical family, would see that sometimes the path less taken leads exactly where you're meant to go. My phone buzzed with a text from my father. "Harold is very interested. Don't dismiss this opportunity without serious consideration, Claire. Think about your future." I set the phone aside without responding and turned instead to my sketchbook, opening to a fresh page. The future was already unfolding before me, just not the one they had in mind. The weeks following the family dinner flew by in a blur of activity. My small apartment was transformed into a production headquarters, with fabric samples, design specs, and shipping materials covering every available surface. The quiet of January in Chicago, that post-holiday lull when the city seemed to hibernate under its blanket of snow, was perfect for the intense work ahead. "Are you sure about these production numbers?" May asked, adjusting her glasses as she reviewed the purchase orders spread across my dining table. A former textile engineer who had left the corporate world for similar reasons as me, May had initially joined Stitch & Story as a part-time production assistant. Now she was becoming indispensable. "Lawrence confirmed it yesterday," I said, pouring us both another cup of coffee. 5,000 units for the initial catalog launch, with potential for reorders based on customer response. Zara, my other assistant, whistled as she organized fabric swatches. A recent SAIC graduate with an eye for color that I deeply envied. She had started helping me just 3 months ago. "That's massive, Claire. We're going to need more space." She was right. My apartment, which had been adequate for our small batch production, couldn't possibly accommodate this scale. I'd been avoiding thinking about it, but there was no denying the reality. Stitch & Story needed to grow up. "I've been looking at some workshop spaces," I admitted, pulling up a real estate listing on my tablet. "There's a loft in Pilsen that might work. Industrial feel, good light, rent that won't completely bankrupt us." May and Zara gathered around to look. The space was nothing fancy. Exposed brick walls, worn wooden floors, massive windows that would flood the area with natural light. But it had enough square footage for multiple workstations, storage for materials, and even a small showroom area. "When can we see it?" Zara asked, her enthusiasm infectious. "I've scheduled a viewing tomorrow at 10 a.m. Both of you should come. This would be your workspace, too." As they left that evening, I sat alone among the scattered evidence of Stitch & Story's impending transformation. My phone displayed 3 missed calls from my father and a text from Emma. "Harold asked for your number. I gave it to him. You can thank me later." I sighed and typed a response. "Please don't give out my contact information without asking." Her reply was immediate. "He's a catch, Claire. Don't be difficult." I set the phone aside without answering. Emma couldn't understand that I had no interest in Harold or in anyone else my family deemed suitable. My focus was entirely on the opportunity before me, one that still felt partly unreal, as if I might wake up tomorrow to find it had all been an elaborate dream. To reassure myself, I opened the email from Lawrence again, scanning the production. Timeline. The Homestyle Network segment was scheduled to film on January 20th, just 2 weeks away. My 4 designs would be featured in a 10-minute segment of their daily program, with the host demonstrating how my customizable textiles could transform a living space. The publicity would coincide with the catalog release, driving customers to both online and retail purchases. If all went well, this could be just the beginning of a long-term partnership. I closed my laptop and picked up one of my earliest designs, a throw pillow featuring hand-embroidered native Illinois wildflowers. I'd created it during those first uncertain months after leaving Axis Marketing, when I was still trying to find my voice as a designer. The stitching wasn't as refined as my current work, but the passion was there in every thread. "We've come a long way," I whispered to the empty room. The Pilsen loft exceeded my expectations. Flooded with morning light, the 2,500-square-foot space had high ceilings, a freight elevator, and even a small kitchenette tucked in one corner. The building had once been a garment factory, which seemed like a good omen. "This is perfect," Zara breathed, already moving through the space and gesturing at invisible workstations. "We could set up the cutting tables here, sewing machines along that wall, design and office space by the windows." The property manager, a woman named Deanna, with a no-nonsense attitude and comfortable shoes, watched us with amusement. The other interested party is a tech startup. They've made an offer, but the owner prefers creative businesses in the building, artists, designers, that sort of thing. My heart sank. "There's another offer already?" "Don't look so panicked," Deanna said. "Your background is exactly what the owner likes. She's kept the rents reasonable specifically to attract small creative businesses. Submit your proposal by Friday, and I'll make sure she sees it." As we left the building, May and Zara buzzing with ideas for the space, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost declined it, assuming it was Harold, but professional habit made me answer. "Claire Collins." "Ms. Collins, this is Vivian Martinez from Homestyle Network. I'm the producer for your segment on our daily program." I stopped, signaling to May and Zara to go ahead. "Yes, hi, thank you for calling. I'm reaching out to discuss the filming schedule. We'd like to shoot on location if possible. Lawrence mentioned you're based in Chicago?" "That's right." "Perfect. Instead of flying you to our New York studios, we'd like to film in your workspace. It gives the segment a more authentic feel, shows where the magic happens." She paused. "Do you have a workshop or studio we could use?" I looked up at the Pilsen building we'd just left. "I'm actually in the process of moving into a new studio space. It should be set up by your filming date." "Wonderful. I'll email you the details, but generally we'll need about a half day for filming. Our host Lydia will be there with a small crew. We'll need to see your design process, some finished products, and Lydia will do a brief interview with you." After confirming a few more details, I ended the call and stood motionless on the sidewalk, my mind racing. I didn't actually have the loft yet. What if my proposal wasn't accepted? What if the tech startup got it instead? I turned and marched back, into the building, catching Deanna as she was locking up the space. "I need this loft," I blurted out. "Homestyle Network wants to film here in 2 weeks. It's a huge opportunity for my business and I can't do it from my apartment." Deanna raised an eyebrow. "Homestyle Network? My mother watches that show religiously. They're featuring my designs in their spring catalog. The TV segment will coincide with the launch." She studied me for a moment, then pulled out her phone. "Let me call the owner." 15 minutes later, I walked out with a signed lease agreement and keys to my new studio. The rent was higher than I'd budgeted, but still manageable, especially with the Homestyle deal providing a significant cash influx. The owner, a former textile artist herself, had been swayed by both my story and the potential publicity for the building. Now I just had to transform an empty loft into a working studio in less than 2 weeks. "You've been avoiding my calls, Claire." My father's voice, stern but controlled, greeted me as I entered Wildfire, an upscale steakhouse in the heart of Chicago's business district. He'd insisted on lunch, and after 3 days of dodging his calls, I'd finally acquiesced. At least in a public place, he'd be less likely to create a scene. "I've been busy, Dad." I slid into the booth across from him. He was impeccably dressed. As always, his silver hair perfectly groomed, his expression a mixture of concern and disapproval. "The business is expanding." He signaled for the waiter, ordering his usual scotch on the rocks. I requested sparkling water with lime. That's actually what I wanted to discuss. His tone was measured, reasonable, the same tone he'd used when convincing me that art school wasn't a practical choice for college. Harold told me about your conversation at Emma's dinner. He mentioned some sort of licensing deal. So that's what this was about. I felt a flicker of irritation. Yes, I've secured a licensing agreement with Homestyle Collections. They'll feature my designs in their spring catalog and on their television program. For a moment, genuine surprise crossed his face. Homestyle? That's actually impressive, Claire. The concession, small as it was, caught me off guard. Thank you. Our drinks arrived, and he took a deliberate sip of his scotch before continuing. But it's also concerning. Do you understand what you're getting into? Licensing deals, production, at scale. These require business acumen, legal understanding, capital. I have an MBA, Dad. I rarely played this card. The reminder that before walking away from corporate America, I'd excelled in it. I've read every line of that contract. I've built financial projections. I know exactly what I'm getting into. He leaned forward. And if the deal falls through, if the exposure doesn't translate to sustainable business, what then, Claire? You've walked away from a career once already. There won't be a third act. The waiter returned for our orders. My father chose the bone-in ribeye, medium rare. I wasn't hungry but ordered the salmon salad anyway. I've signed a lease on a studio space in Pilsen, I said once we were alone again. The Homestyle crew is filming there in 10 days. I've hired 2 assistants full-time, and I'm contracting with a local seamstress collective for additional production. Capacity. My father studied me with an expression I couldn't quite read. You're really going all in on this. I am. And you've considered what happens if it fails? Success isn't guaranteed in any venture, Dad. You taught me that. I met his gaze steadily. But I believe in what I'm building. I wish you did too. He sat back, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. Harold is still interested in meeting with you, not just about personal matters. He thinks your design sense could be valuable for staging some of his luxury properties. I stifled a sigh. I'm not interested in Harold, professionally or personally. You're being stubborn, Claire. I'm being focused. There's a difference. Our food arrived, creating a momentary reprieve from the tension. As we ate, my father shifted to safer topics. Michael's latest app development, Vanessa's children, the abysmal performance of the Bears. I responded appropriately, asking the right questions, making the right noises of interest. It was a dance we'd perfected over years, the appearance of normal father-daughter conversation without any real connection. As he signaled for the check, he delivered his parting shot. Your mother and I worry about you, Claire. We've always wanted security for you, a good life. I know, Dad. And I did know. In their own way, my parents loved me. They simply couldn't understand that their version of success wasn't mine. But I need to do this my way. He nodded, not in agreement but in acknowledgement of an impasse. As we parted outside the restaurant, he surprised me by pulling me into a brief hug. Just be careful, he said. And know that we're here if you need us. I watched him walk away, his tall figure commanding respect even among Chicago's hurried lunchtime crowds. For the first time, I noticed a slight stoop to his shoulders that hadn't been there before. My father was aging, and perhaps his concern, however misguided, came from a place of genuine love. The next 10 days passed in a whirlwind of activity. Zara, May, and I worked around the clock to transform the empty Pilsen loft into a functioning studio. We scoured secondhand stores for work tables and storage units, installed proper lighting, set up our sewing and cutting stations, and created a small but inviting area for the interview portion of the filming. I'd taken a significant financial risk, investing almost all of my remaining savings into making the studio camera-ready. If the home-style deal somehow fell through, I'd be in serious trouble. But every time doubt crept in, I reminded myself of the contract sitting in my email inbox, of Lawrence's enthusiasm for my designs, of Vivian's call about the filming. This was real. This was happening. The night before filming, I stayed late, at the studio, making sure every detail was perfect. The production samples for the catalog were nearly complete. My 4 designs, each showcasing a different aspect of Stitch & Story's aesthetic. There was the Heritage Collection, which incorporated vintage fabrics and heirloom techniques. The Botanical Series, featuring native Midwestern plants embroidered in vibrant colors. The Transformation line, where clients could provide meaningful textiles to be incorporated into new pieces, and the Modern Geometric Collection, with its bold, contemporary patterns. As I arranged the finished samples on a display wall, my phone buzzed with a text from Vanessa. "Heard the big news from Dad. Why didn't you tell us about homestyle?" "That's huge, Claire." I hesitated before responding. Wanted to wait until everything was certain. Still feels surreal. "You should have," said something at Emma's dinner. "Would have shut everyone up." I smiled at that. "Maybe. But I'd rather show than tell. Fair enough." "Need any help tomorrow?" I could reschedule my morning consultations. Her offer surprised me. Vanessa's surgical schedule was typically booked months in advance. "Really?" "Really. I'm proud of you, sis. Let me help." Warmth spread through my chest. "Actually, could use help styling some of the display areas." 8 a.m. too early? I'll bring coffee and pastries. Text me the address." I sent her the studio location, then stood back to survey my work. The space had come together beautifully. Still, raw and industrial, but now filled with color, texture, and purpose. It felt like the physical manifestation of what I'd been trying to build these past 3 years. Something authentic, creative, and entirely my own. Tomorrow, a camera crew would capture this space, my designs, my story, and beam it into millions of homes across America. People who had never heard of Stitch & Story would suddenly know my name, see my work, perhaps even purchase my creations. And my family? They'd finally see that my little side business was anything but. The thought brought a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. Part of me, the part that still yearned for their approval, couldn't wait for them to witness this validation. Another part feared they'd find a way to diminish this achievement, too. As I locked up the studio and headed home through Chicago's frigid January night, I resolved to focus on what mattered: the opportunity before me, the business I was building, the creative vision I refused to compromise. Whatever happened tomorrow, whatever my family thought, I was proud of what I'd created. My phone buzzed again as I reached my apartment. This time it was my mother. "Your father told me about your TV appearance. What should I wear if I come to watch?" I stopped with my key halfway to the lock. My mother wanted to come? I hadn't expected that. "It's a closed set, Mom. Just crew and me. But maybe we could all watch together when it airs in March." Her response came quickly. "Of course, darling. We'll host a viewing party at our house. I'll tell everyone." A viewing party. The Collins family gathered around to watch my television debut. The idea was both thrilling and terrifying. Inside my apartment, I made a cup of chamomile tea and tried to quiet my racing mind. Tomorrow would change everything, for my business certainly, but perhaps also for how my family saw me. After years of dismissal and doubt, they would witness external validation of what I'd been trying to tell them all along. But as I drifted toward sleep, one question lingered. Would it be enough? Would any amount of success ever be enough to make them truly understand why I'd chosen this path? Tomorrow would bring answers, but not necessarily the ones I was looking for. Hold that position. Perfect. The photographer adjusted her lens as I pretended to stitch a detail on one of my Heritage Collection pillows. It was 9:30 a.m., and the Homestyle Network crew had been transforming my studio into a television set since 7 a.m. Lights were positioned strategically around the space, cables snaked across the floor, and a small monitor had been set up where Vivian could watch the footage as it was captured. "Can you look up from your work and smile?" the photographer asked, snapping rapidly. "These stills will be used for the website and social promotion." I complied, trying to appear natural despite feeling anything but. Behind the photographer, Vanessa gave me an encouraging thumbs up. True to her word, she'd arrived at 8 a.m. with coffee and pastries, helping to style the display areas and now serving as my personal cheerleader. "Don't worry, you're doing great," Vivian said, checking something on her clipboard. "Once Lydia arrives, we'll do a quick run-through, then start filming the demonstration segments. The interview will be last." Lydia Matthews was the host of Homestyle Daily, a perky blonde with a warm on-screen presence and a reputation for making even the most nervous guests feel comfortable. I'd watched countless episodes of her show while preparing for today, studying how she interacted with designers and artisans. May approached with a steaming mug. "Chamomile tea with honey. You look like you need it." "Is it that obvious I'm terrified?" I whispered. "Only to someone who knows you," she replied with a reassuring smile. "Everything looks amazing, Claire. They're going to love your work." She was right about the studio, at least. Overnight, it had transformed from a functional workspace to a showcase for Stitch & Story's aesthetic. Finished pieces were artfully arranged on white walls, workstations displayed materials and tools in organized beauty, and the soft, natural light filtering through the large windows created the perfect ambiance. The studio door opened, letting in a blast of January cold, along with Lydia Matthews herself, bundled in a camel coat and carrying a to-go cup from Intelligentsia. "Morning, everyone," she called, her voice exactly as energetic as it sounded on television. "So sorry I'm running late. Chicago traffic is no joke." Vivian hurried over for introductions. "Lydia, this is Claire Collins, the designer behind Stitch & Story." Lydia grasped my hand warmly. "Claire, I've been admiring your lookbook all week. These textiles are absolutely stunning, so much more interesting than what we usually feature." Her enthusiasm seemed genuine, and I felt myself relax slightly. "Thank you. That means a lot. I especially love the concept behind your transformation. Line. Using clients' meaningful fabrics in new pieces. Brilliant, so emotionally resonant." She glanced around the studio appreciatively. "And this space, the industrial meets artisan vibe, is perfect for filming." As Lydia went to hair and makeup, Vivian walked me through the filming plan. We'd start with overview shots of the studio, then move to a demonstration where I'd show Lydia how I incorporated vintage fabrics into a new design. The interview would cover my background, inspiration, and the story behind Stitch & Story. "Just be yourself," Vivian advised. "Authentic passion is what connects with our audience." Easier said than done when faced with bright lights and cameras, but I nodded anyway. Across the room, Vanessa was chatting with Zara, probably getting the full story of how we'd transformed the space in just 10 days. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Good luck today, darling. Your father and I are so proud." The sentiment was nice, if not entirely believable. Still, I appreciated the gesture. Another text arrived immediately after. "Emma wanted me to ask what you're wearing for the filming. She hopes it's the blue silk blouse she gave you for Christmas. Looks so professional on camera." I glanced down at my chosen outfit, a rust-colored linen tunic over black jeans, paired with the silver statement necklace I'd splurged on after my first major sale. Comfortable, authentic, and completely not what Emma would have selected. "Wearing my favorite work clothes," I replied, choosing to ignore the implied criticism. 15 minutes to places, everyone," Vivian called out, and the studio buzzed with renewed activity. Vanessa approached, handing me a fresh cup of tea. "You ready for this?" "Not even remotely," I admitted. "But I'm doing it anyway," That's my sister. She squeezed my arm. The one who always had the courage to make her own path, even when everyone else thought she was crazy. I raised an eyebrow. You thought I was crazy too. Maybe a little, she conceded with a grin. But I also envied you. Walking away from security to pursue a passion? That takes guts, Claire. Guts I never had. You're a surgeon. You literally have guts in your hands every day, she laughed. You know what I mean. Professional security isn't the same as following your heart. Before I could respond, Vivian was calling me to my position. It was time. And cut. That was perfect, Claire. Vivian's approval washed over me like a warm wave. Let's move on to the interview portion. We'd been filming for over 3 hours, and to my surprise, I'd gradually forgotten about the cameras. Lydia was a natural at making the process feel like a simple conversation between friends, oohing and ahing over my designs, and asking insightful questions that allowed me to showcase my knowledge and passion. Now we moved to a small seating area where 2 mid-century armchairs had been positioned at a conversational angle. Behind them hung 3 of my most striking pieces: an heirloom quilt reimagined as a wall hanging, a series of pillows featuring architectural elements from Chicago landmarks, and a table runner woven with metallic threads that caught the light beautifully. This segment will be about your journey, Vivian explained as a sound technician clipped a microphone to my collar. How you went from corporate marketing to textile design, the inspiration behind Stitch and Story, where you see the brand going. Nodded, suddenly nervous again. This was the part where I'd have to talk about myself, not just my work. Lydia must have sensed my anxiety because she leaned in before the cameras started rolling. Just talk to me, not the camera, she advised. Imagine we're having coffee and you're telling me about this amazing business you've built. The red light blinked on, and Lydia turned her professional smile toward the camera. I'm here in Chicago with Claire Collins, founder and designer of Stitch and Story, whose stunning textile designs will be featured exclusively in Homestyle's spring collection. Claire, your work is extraordinary. Tell us how you went from corporate marketing executive to textile artist. I took a deep breath. It wasn't a straight line, that's for sure. I'd always loved textiles. My grandmother taught me to sew when I was 7, but I followed the expected professional path instead. MBA, corporate job, the works. What changed? I was successful by conventional standards, but increasingly unhappy. Then 3 years ago, my grandmother passed away and left me her collection of fabrics, threads, and patterns. Some dated back to the 1920s. It was like receiving this incredible legacy of creativity. As I spoke, I found myself sharing things I hadn't planned to. How I'd started making pieces for friends during evenings and weekends, how the response had been so enthusiastic that I'd begun to consider it could be more than a hobby, how terrifying and exhilarating it had been to hand in my resignation at Axis Marketing. That took tremendous courage, Lydia commented. Not everyone would risk a stable career for a creative endeavor. I smiled, thinking of my family's reaction. It wasn't without opposition. There's significant pressure to follow traditional definitions of success. Walking away from that requires conviction in your own vision. What would you say to others considering a similar leap? Preparation matters. I used my business background to build a solid foundation, proper accounting, marketing strategy, clear brand positioning. Passion alone isn't enough. You need to treat your creative business like a business. Lydia nodded enthusiastically. That's excellent advice. Now tell us about your design philosophy. What makes Stitch and Story unique? For the next several minutes, I explained my approach to sustainable sourcing, the importance of supporting traditional textile techniques, and my commitment to creating pieces that told a story, either through their materials, their imagery, or the process of their creation. Your transformation line particularly stands out, Lydia said. Tell our viewers how that works. It began with a client who had her late mother's favorite dress. She couldn't bear to discard it, but didn't know what to do with it either. I suggested incorporating the fabric into a set of pillows for her living room. The response was emotional. She said it was like keeping her mother's presence in her daily life, but in a way that was beautiful and functional. I described how this had led to an entire collection where clients could send meaningful textiles, baby clothes, wedding dresses, loved ones' garments, to be transformed into new pieces that honored the original while creating something lasting and useful. The emotional resonance of that is powerful, Lydia said, genuinely moved. You're not just creating home goods, you're preserving memories. The interview continued, covering everything from my creative process to my plans for expansion. Throughout, I felt a clarity and confidence that surprised me. This wasn't like defending my choices at family dinners. This was sharing my vision with someone who actually understood its value. Final question, Lydia said as we neared the end. Where do you see Stitch and Story 5 years from now? I'd prepared for this one, but in the moment, I found myself giving a different answer than planned. I want to create a modern heritage brand, one that honors traditional craftsmanship while embracing contemporary design. I envision a community-centered business that provides opportunities for skilled artisans, particularly women returning to the workforce or immigrants with textile traditions from their cultures. So more than just beautiful products? Exactly. Stitch and Story isn't just about decorative objects. It's about the people who make them and the stories they carry. That's what I'm building, a business with both beauty and meaning at its core. And cut, Vivian called. That was fantastic, Claire. Absolutely perfect. Lydia reached over to squeeze my hand. You're a natural. Our viewers are going to fall in love with your story and your products. As the crew began packing up their equipment, Vanessa approached with a wide smile. That was amazing, sis. You didn't just sell your products, you sold your vision. I'm seriously impressed. It felt right, I said, surprised by how energized I felt despite the hours of filming. Like I finally got to tell the whole story without interruption or dismissal. Vivian joined us, tablet in hand. Claire, the segment will air on March 15th, coinciding with the catalog release. We'll send you a preview link a few days before so you can see the final edit. And I'm already planning to feature you in our Designers to Watch Summer Special, Lydia added. Your aesthetic is exactly what our viewers respond to, authentic, meaningful, and beautifully executed. After exchanging contact information and final handshakes, the crew departed, leaving me alone with Vanessa, May, and Zara in the suddenly quiet studio. I can't believe that just happened, I said, collapsing onto one of the display chairs. Zara grinned. Believe it, and get ready, because when this airs, everything's going to change. May, practical as always, was already making notes. We should prepare for increased order volume. The website needs to be robust enough to handle traffic spikes, and we'll need to streamline production further. As they discussed logistics, Vanessa pulled me aside. Mom's been texting me nonstop for updates. The whole family knows about the filming now. What are they saying? I couldn't help asking. Emma's upset you didn't wear the blouse she gave you. Vanessa rolled her eyes. Michael's impressed by the homestyle connection. Apparently, they have excellent market penetration in the demographic he's targeting with his new app. Dad's processing. And Mom? Genuinely excited, I think. She's already invited half of Lake Forest to this viewing party she's planning. I groaned. Of course she has. Hey! Vanessa waited until I met her eyes. Be prepared. Success is changing how they see you, but it may not change everything. Some people can only value what they already understand. Her warning settled heavily in my stomach, tempering the day's euphoria. She was right, of course. External validation might impress my family, but would it make them truly understand my choices? I should get back to the hospital, Vanessa said, checking her watch. But I'm really proud of you, Claire. Not because you're going to be on TV or in some catalog, but because you built something authentic despite everyone telling you it was impossible. After she left, I walked slowly around the studio, taking in what we'd created, not just the physical space, but everything it represented. 3 years ago, I'd been sitting in a corner office at Axis Marketing, surrounded by awards and accolades but feeling hollowed out inside. Now I was here, in this sun-drenched loft, pursuing work that filled me with purpose. My phone buzzed with a text from Lawrence at Homestyle Collections. Vivian says the filming went brilliantly. Can't wait to see the final segment. Production. Samples look perfect. We're proceeding with full order. Congratulations, Claire. This is just the beginning. Just the beginning. The phrase echoed in my mind as I typed a grateful response. Whatever happened when the segment aired, however my family reacted, today had confirmed what I'd known in my heart all along. I was on the right path. My path. I gathered my things, said goodnight to May and Zara, and headed home through the early evening darkness. Chicago in January was brutally cold, but tonight the frigid air felt invigorating rather than punishing. As I walked, I made a mental list of next steps: updating the website, securing additional production capacity, planning a launch event. To coincide with the TV segment, my phone rang. Emma. I considered letting it go to voicemail but decided to face whatever criticism she had ready. Hi, Em. Claire, Mom says your TV thing went well today. Her voice had that forced brightness she used when trying to be supportive while simultaneously preparing to offer unsolicited advice. It did. The crew was great, and they seemed really happy with the segment. That's wonderful. I was thinking I could help you prepare for the publicity. You know, media training, wardrobe consultation. First impressions are everything in business. Course. Emma couldn't simply be happy for me. She had to find a way to fix me. Thanks, but I've got it covered. The Homestyle team was very happy with my presentation. Well, sure, but this is network television. It's a different level of exposure. Her tone sharpened slightly. People who knew you at Axis might see it. Potential clients from higher circles. Translation. I wasn't polished enough for Emma's standards. The whole point of Stitch and Story is authenticity, Em. I'm not trying to present some corporate persona. There's authentic, and then there's professional, she countered. Anyway, Mom's planning this big viewing party at their house. All their friends, our extended family. It's going to be quite the event. My stomach tightened. The idea of watching my television debut surrounded by critical family members and their equally judgmental friends was nightmarish. Maybe we should keep it small. Just family. Too late. Mom's already sent out save the dates. People are excited, Claire. This is a big deal. Despite my misgivings, a small part of me was touched that my mother was proud enough to want to celebrate this moment publicly. Fine, but tell her to keep expectations reasonable. It's a short segment on a daytime show, not the Academy Awards. Oh, and Harold will be there too. He specifically asked to be included when Dad mentioned it at golf. And there it was, the real reason for Emma's call. Emma, I've told you repeatedly that I'm not interested in Harold. Don't be ridiculous. He's successful, attractive, and clearly interested in you. What more could you want? What more indeed? Only someone who valued me for who I actually was, not who they thought I should be. Only genuine support for the path I'd chosen. Only love that didn't come with conditions and expectations. I need to go, Em. I've got a business to run. I ended the call before she could respond, then turned my phone to silent. The next 7 weeks leading up to the Homestyle launch would be intensely busy. Orders to fulfill, production to scale, a website to upgrade. I didn't have time for family drama or Emma's matchmaking or my father's lingering skepticism. Yet as I approached my apartment building, I couldn't help wondering how they would react. When they finally saw the segment, would they finally understand why this path was so important to me? Or would they find new ways to qualify their support? New suggestions for how I could be doing it better? The answer wouldn't come until March 15th. Until then, I had work to do. Important work that mattered deeply to me, regardless of whether my family ever fully understood its value. The weeks following the filming passed in a productive blur. February in Chicago brought its usual mix of snow, bitter wind, and the occasional teasing day of sunshine that hinted at a spring still months away. I barely noticed the weather, spending most of my time in the Pilsen studio with May and Zara as we prepared for the homestyle launch. The new production team starts Monday, I told them during our Friday afternoon meeting. We'd contracted with a women's textile cooperative on the city's west side, providing jobs to skilled immigrant seamstresses who had struggled to find employment that utilized their talents. May, can you handle their training? She nodded, making notes on her tablet. I've prepared detailed instructions for each design, with photos of every step. Language might be a challenge with some of the newer members, but several are bilingual and can translate. Perfect. Zara, where are we with the website upgrade? Almost ready for launch. The developer implemented the new ordering system and inventory management software. We can handle at least triple our current volume without issues. She flipped through images on her phone. Oh, and the product photography came back. Want to see? The photos were stunning. Professional lighting showcasing the texture and detail of each piece against clean, simple backgrounds. My designs looked elevated, refined, worthy of a major retailer's catalog. These are perfect, I said, feeling a swell of pride. Let's use them to update our social media too. We need to capitalize on the momentum when the segment airs. After they left, I stayed, late, finalizing designs for a potential summer collection. If the spring launch was successful, Homestyle had expressed interest in extending our partnership. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. Finalizing plans for the viewing party. 35 confirmed guests so far. What are you wearing, darling? 35. Guests? The number was alarming. I'd expected immediate family, perhaps a few close friends. Not a full-scale socialite gathering. Mom, don't you think that's a bit much? It's just a short TV segment. Her response was immediate. Nonsense. This is your television debut. Everyone is so excited to support you. Support had never been my family's strong suit when it came to my business, but I decided not to point this out. Please keep it simple. No formal catering or anything. Too late. Antoine is planning the menu. He's thinking spring-themed canapés to match your catalog launch. Of course, Emma and Antoine had become involved. This was rapidly transforming from a simple viewing into another opportunity for them to showcase their picture-perfect lifestyle. But perhaps I was being unfair. Maybe they were genuinely trying to celebrate this milestone with me. That sounds lovely. Thank you. As I packed up to leave, my phone rang. Lawrence from Homestyle Collections. Claire, glad I caught you. I've just seen the rough cut of your segment and it's fantastic. Lydia's team did an exceptional job capturing the essence of your brand. Relief washed through me. That's wonderful to hear. But that's not why I'm calling. The response to your designs from our retail buyers has been extraordinary. They've doubled the initial order for the catalog launch. I gripped the edge of my desk. Doubled? 10,000 units instead of 5. Can your production team handle that volume? My mind raced through calculations, material orders, production schedules, quality control protocols. With the cooperative's additional capacity, it would be tight, but doable. Yes, we can handle it. We'll need to adjust some timelines, but we'll deliver. Excellent. One more thing. Our flagship store in Chicago wants to host a launch event. Meet and greet with the designer, demonstration of your techniques, that sort of thing. Are you available on March 16th, the day after the segment airs? By the time I ended the call, my hands were shaking with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. This was everything I'd worked for. Recognition, expansion, the chance to bring my designs to a national audience. Yet the speed of the changes was dizzying. I called May and Zara, explaining the situation. Neither hesitated. Of course we would meet the increased order. Of course we could handle the launch event. Their confidence bolstered mine, reminding me that I wasn't doing this alone anymore. "You're on YouTube," Michael's voice blared through my phone a week later as I supervised the delivery of additional sewing machines for the studio. "What are you talking about?" I wedged the phone between my ear and shoulder, signing for the delivery. Homestyle posted a teaser for their spring catalog. "You're in it. Just a few seconds, but it's definitely you in your studio." My heart skipped. "Already? The segment doesn't air for another 3 weeks." "Well, you're famous now, sis. I've already texted the link to the whole family." He paused. "It's actually really good, Claire. You look professional, passionate. Who knew those pillows could be so interesting?" Coming from Michael, this was high praise. "Thanks, I think. Check your social media. Followers are probably spiking already." He was right. By that evening, Stitch and Story's Instagram following had nearly doubled. The homestyle teaser had been viewed over 100,000 times, with hundreds of comments asking about the products and when they would be available. Vanessa called next, her usually calm surgical demeanor replaced with genuine excitement. "Have you seen the online comments? People are losing their minds over your designs." "It's surreal," I admitted, scrolling through the notifications overwhelming my phone. "I keep thinking there's been some mistake, that they couldn't possibly be this interested in my work." "Well, they are, and so am I. I'm bringing Jacob to Mom's viewing party. Even he's impressed, and you know how hard he is to impress." The mention of the viewing party sent a familiar flutter of anxiety through my stomach. "Mom says there are 35 people coming now. It feels excessive. It's Mom's way of showing she's proud of you. Let her have this." "I know, it's just that everyone's expectations seem so high. What if the segment isn't as good as people hope? What if the catalog sales are disappointing, Claire?" Vanessa's voice took on the firm tone she probably used with nervous residents. "Stop catastrophizing. You've already succeeded beyond what anyone in the family thought possible. Whatever happens next, no one can take that away from you." She was right, of course. Yet the weight of expectations, my family's, homestyle's, now apparently the internet's, pressed heavier with each passing day. 2 days before the segment was set to air, I received the preview link from Vivian. I'd been so busy with production that I'd almost forgotten this was coming. The email sat unopened in my inbox as I supervised the cooperative members' work, approved packaging designs, and finalized details for the launch event. Back in my apartment that evening, I finally worked up the courage to click the link. The Homestyle logo appeared on my screen, followed by upbeat music and Lydia's cheerful introduction. Today on Homestyle Daily, we're introducing an exclusive new collection that combines traditional craftsmanship with contemporary design. Join me in Chicago as I visit the studio of textile artist Claire Collins, founder of Stitch and Story. The camera panned across my studio, highlighting the industrial chic space with its abundant natural light, then cut to close-ups of my designs, the delicate embroidery on the heritage collection, the bold patterns of the modern geometric line, the thoughtfully incorporated heirloom fabrics in the transformation pieces. Then I appeared on screen, demonstrating a technique to Lydia. I braced myself, waiting for the cringe that usually accompanied seeing myself on camera or hearing my recorded voice. But the woman on the screen didn't make me cringe at all. She was articulate, confident, clearly knowledgeable about her craft. Her passion came through in every gesture, every explanation. The interview portion was even better. The editing had preserved the most compelling parts of our conversation, weaving in beautiful shots of the finished products. As I listened to myself describe the mission behind Stitch and Story, the importance of preserving traditional techniques while creating contemporary designs, the emotional resonance of transforming meaningful textiles into new treasures. I realized I was hearing the clearest articulation of my vision I'd ever given. When the segment ended, I sat in stunned silence for several minutes. Then I watched it again, and again. It was perfect. Better than I could have imagined. Not because I looked good or sounded polished, though the professional production certainly helped, but because it captured the essence of what I'd been trying to build. Anyone watching would understand exactly why Stitch and Story mattered, including, perhaps my family. I texted Vivian immediately, just watch the segment. It's absolutely perfect. Thank you for capturing the heart of my business so beautifully. Her response came quickly. You made our job easy. The segment tests through the roof with focus groups. Get ready for a big response when it airs Friday. There was no more time to worry about the viewing party or my family's reaction. The next 48 hours were consumed with final preparations for the launch. The homestyle orders were packed and ready for distribution. The website was updated with new images and improved functionality. The cooperative members had been trained and were producing pieces with impressive skill and attention to detail. Everything was ready. All that remained was to watch the segment air with my family and face whatever response came my way. My parents' Lake Forest home looked like it had been staged for a magazine shoot. Spring flowers adorned every surface, catering staff circulated with trays of Antoine's meticulously crafted hors d'oeuvres, and a large screen had been set up in the living room, tuned to the Homestyle network with the volume low until the segment began. I arrived early at my mother's request, submitting to her fussing over my outfit, a simple navy dress that even Emma had approved, and hair, which she insisted would look better up than in my usual loose waves. The compromise was a half-up, style that satisfied her need for formality while letting me feel like myself. Everyone will start arriving at 6, she said, adjusting a flower arrangement for the third time. Cocktails first, then we'll all gather to watch at 7 when your segment airs. Mom, you really didn't need to go to all this trouble. She paused, meeting my eyes directly. Yes, I did. This is important, Claire. You're important. The simple statement caught me off guard. My mother had always been supportive in her way, but rarely directly affirming. Thank you. She squeezed my hand briefly before returning to hostess mode as the doorbell announced the first guests. Soon, the house filled with familiar faces. My parents' friends, extended family members, people I'd known all my life but rarely engaged with on a personal level. To my surprise, many approached me with genuine interest in my business, mentioning the online teaser or articles they'd read about the Homestyle Spring catalog. Several asked where they could purchase my designs or if I took custom commissions. Emma and Antoine arrived in coordinated outfits, immediately taking center stage. As they often did, Emma air-kissed my cheeks, then leaned in to whisper, You should be circulating more. Harold just arrived. He's by the fireplace. I sighed. Emma, for the last time, I'm not interested in Harold. Don't be ridiculous. He's perfect for you. No, he's perfect by your standards. There's a difference. She frowned but was quickly distracted by one of my mother's friends asking about her event planning business. Vanessa and Jacob arrived next, followed closely by Michael and Sophia. My siblings gathered around me, creating a protective circle that felt both comforting and surprising. Nervous? Michael asked, handing me a much-needed glass of champagne. Terrified, I admitted. It's one thing to watch it alone, another to watch with everyone. It's going to be great, Vanessa assured me. The online response to the teaser was incredible. Jacob, typically aloof, actually seemed impressed. Your website traffic increased 600% after the teaser dropped. That's significant market validation. My father appeared beside us, looking uncharacteristically hesitant. Claire, could I have a word? I followed him to his study. a wood-paneled sanctuary that had always been his domain. He closed the door, muffling the party sounds, and gestured for me to sit. "I owe you an apology," he said, remaining standing. "Richard Collins didn't do vulnerability sitting down. I've been dismissive of your business. I saw it as a hobby, a phase, perhaps even a rebellion against the path we'd envisioned for you." I waited, unwilling to make this easier for him. "But I was wrong," he continued. "I've done some research on homestyle collections. Their licensing deals are highly selective and their market reach is impressive. What you've accomplished, it's remarkable, Claire." "Thank you, Dad." "I still don't fully understand it," he admitted with a small smile. "Textiles aren't exactly my area of expertise, but I understand success when I see it. And more importantly, I see how alive you are when you talk about your work. That's something your corporate job never gave you." Something tight in my chest began to loosen. "No, it didn't. Your mother and I want you to know we're proud of you. Not because you're going to be on television or because your business is succeeding, though those things are certainly impressive, but because you had the courage to follow your own path." It was perhaps the most affirming thing my father had ever said to me. Before I could respond, my mother opened the door. "It's almost time. Everyone's gathering in the living room." We rejoined the party, where guests were arranging themselves, on couches and chairs facing the large screen. My mother had positioned an armchair for me in a place of honor, with my siblings nearby. As I sat, feeling dozens of eyes on me, a familiar panic began to rise. What if they hated it? What if even now they found ways to minimize my achievement? The homestyle daily theme music began, and Lydia's cheerful face filled the screen. After introducing the day's topics, she teased, "Coming up, we'll visit a Chicago studio where traditional textile techniques are being reimagined for contemporary homes." During the commercial break, Antoine distributed flutes of champagne to everyone. My father stood, raising his glass. "Before we watch Claire's segment, I'd like to propose a toast. To my daughter, who had the vision and courage to build something truly her own. Claire, we are immensely proud of you." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room as glasses clinked. I blinked back unexpected tears, nodding my thanks to my father. Then the program returned, and suddenly my studio was on screen. My designs showcased in beautiful detail, my voice explaining the philosophy behind Stitch and Story. The room fell, silent as everyone watched, totally absorbed. I couldn't look at the screen. Instead, I watched the faces around me. My mother's visible pride, my father's thoughtful concentration, Emma's widening eyes as she realized the scale of what I'd built, Michael's growing respect, Vanessa's knowing smile. When the segment ended, there was a moment of silence, then thunderous applause. People surrounded me with congratulations, questions about the designs, requests for business cards. "That was magnificent, darling," my mother said, embracing me. "You were so articulate, so passionate." "The production value was excellent," Emma conceded, which from her was high praise indeed. "Your designs photographed beautifully." Even Harold approached, though his congratulations had a different tone now. "I had no idea your business was so substantial," he said, clearly reassessing me. "If you're ever interested in discussing investment opportunities for expansion." "Thank you, but we're fully capitalized at present," I replied, enjoying the flash of surprise in his eyes at my business vocabulary. As the party continued around me, Michael pulled me aside. "Your website just crashed from traffic. Apparently Lydia posted about your segment on her personal Instagram, and it's going viral." I laughed, the sound bubbling up from a place of pure joy. "Can you fix it?" "Already on it. Sophia's handling it. She's better at server load issues than I am." Throughout the evening, texts arrived from Lawrence with updates. The Homestyle website was seeing unprecedented traffic for a catalog launch. Retail locations were fielding nonstop calls about availability. The Flagship store was expanding. The space allocated for tomorrow's event in anticipation of larger crowds. It was everything I could have hoped for professionally. But the true victory was more personal. The shift in my family's perception, not just of my business, but of me. They were seeing me, perhaps for the first time, as I truly was. Not the daughter who had strayed from the expected path, but a woman who had carved her own way and found success on her own terms. As the party finally wound down, I found myself on the back patio with Vanessa, taking a moment of quiet under the stars. "So," she said, bumping my shoulder gently with hers, "how does it feel to be vindicated?" I considered the question carefully. It's not about vindication exactly. It's about being seen, really seen, for who you actually are, not who they wanted you to be. Exactly. I sipped my champagne, watching my breath cloud in the March evening air. Though I'll admit, the look on Emma's face when Lydia called me a visionary textile artist was priceless. Vanessa laughed. "She's already telling people she always believed in you, you know. By next week, she'll have convinced herself she was your first supporter." "Let her have it," I said, surprising myself with how little it bothered me. I know the truth, and now, so does everyone else. Inside, the caterers were cleaning up, the screen had been taken down, and the evening was officially over. My parents stood by the door, saying goodbye to the last few guests. When they spotted me, they both beamed with a pride I'd spent years hoping to see. "Tomorrow's the in-store event?" my father asked. I nodded. "At the home-style Flagship on Michigan Avenue. They're expecting a big turnout after tonight's response." "We'll be there," my mother said. "Front row." "You don't have to." "We want to," my father interrupted. "We want to see this next chapter of your success, Claire, if you'll let us." As I drove back to my apartment that night, exhausted but elated, I realized something fundamental had shifted. For years, I'd been seeking my family's approval, measuring my choices against their expectations, trying to prove my path was valid. But somewhere along the way, perhaps during those long hours building my business, or in the quiet moments of creation in my studio, or even today as I watched myself on screen articulating a vision that was uniquely mine, I'd stopped needing their validation quite so desperately. I'd built something real, something valuable, something true to myself. Their recognition was sweet, yes. But it was the cherry on top, not the foundation. The foundation was what I already knew. That success isn't just one thing, that courage is rewarded in unexpected ways, and that the most satisfying path is often the one you have to clear yourself. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I pulled over to check it, thinking it might be a homestyle update. Instead, it was from Margaret, my old supervisor at Axis Marketing. "Just saw you on Homestyle Daily. Remembered how you used to sketch textile designs during budget meetings. So proud to see you've made those sketches into something extraordinary. Congratulations, Claire. You were always meant for something more creative than corporate marketing." I smiled, typing back a grateful response before continuing home through Chicago's glittering nightscape. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, production schedules, inventory management, retail partnerships, the in-store event. But tonight, I savored the knowledge that I'd not only created a successful business, but had also finally bridged the gap between how my family saw me and who I truly was. That transformation, from the family disappointment to a daughter they were genuinely proud of, might be the most valuable thing I'd designed yet. Not because I needed their approval to validate my choices, but because now, finally, they could see what I'd known all along. That sometimes a little side business isn't so little after all. Sometimes it's exactly where you're meant to be. The Homestyle Flagship store on Michigan Avenue was transformed. For the launch event, my designs were displayed throughout the spacious home goods section, arranged in carefully curated vignettes that showcased how they could elevate a living space. A demonstration area had been set up near the center of the floor, with cameras projecting close-up views of my hands onto large screens so everyone could see the techniques I would be sharing. I arrived 2 hours early at Lawrence's request, only to find a line already forming outside the store. "Is there another event happening today?" I asked as he greeted me at the staff entrance. Lawrence grinned. "That's all for you, Claire. After your segment aired last night, our customer service line was flooded with calls. The online inventory sold out within 3 hours." "Sold out?" I repeated, stunned. "All 10,000 units?" "Every last one. We're expediting production on a second run." He guided me through the back corridors to a small green room where I could prepare. Several major department stores have already reached out about carrying the line. This is beyond even our most optimistic projections. I sank into a chair, overwhelmed. I don't know what to say. "Say you're ready to become a household name?" "In home textiles," Lawrence replied, checking his watch. "The store opens in 90 minutes. Your demonstration is scheduled for 11, followed by a meet and greet signing. Based on social media response, we're expecting several hundred attendees." After he left, I checked my phone. Dozens of messages from design school friends, former colleagues, even my old professors. The Stitch and Story Instagram account had gained over 50,000 followers overnight. Our website was back online thanks to Michael and Sophia's technical skills, with pre-orders flooding in for the next production run. A text from May showed the cooperative members gathered around a TV, celebrating, as they watched a recording of the segment. "They're so proud to be part of this," she wrote. "We all are." Another message appeared. From Emma, surprisingly. "The event planner in me is deeply impressed with your media rollout. Strategically brilliant. See you at the store. High praise indeed from my perpetually critical sister." As I prepared for the demonstration, reviewing my talking points and selecting which techniques to showcase, there was a knock at the door. A store associate peeked in. "Ms. Collins? Your family is here. They're asking if they can see you before the event." I followed her to a private viewing area near the main floor where my parents, siblings, and their partners waited. My mother rushed forward immediately, embracing me. "Darling, the store looks amazing. Your designs are everywhere." My father gestured around proudly. "The manager told us they've never had this kind of response to a new collection launch. Said you're their most successful new designer in years." Emma, impeccably dressed as always, was examining the display layout with professional interest. "The visual merchandising is excellent. Very cohesive brand presentation." "Thanks," I said, still adjusting to this new reality where my family was, impressed by my work. "I didn't expect you all to come." "Wouldn't miss it," Michael replied, his arm around Sophia. "Besides, we need you to sign some pillows for us. Apparently, owning original Claire Collins designs is now a status symbol." Vanessa squeezed my hand. "How are you feeling?" "Terrified. Excited. Still not entirely convinced this is real." "It's real," she assured me. "You earned this, Claire. Every bit of it." A store manager appeared, politely informing us that the doors were about to open. Through the windows, I could see the line had grown considerably, wrapping around the corner of the building. "I should go finish preparing," I said, suddenly nervous again. My father surprised me by pulling me into a brief, firm hug. "You're going to be brilliant," he said quietly. "We'll be right there watching." As I returned to the green room, my phone buzzed with another text, this one from Lawrence. "The CEO of Homestyle is flying in for the event. He wants to discuss expanding the partnership. Think high-end furniture textiles, bedding collections, holiday lines?" I sat down heavily, reading the message twice to be sure I'd understood correctly. This wasn't just a successful product launch. It was the beginning of a whole new chapter for Stitch and Story. The key to incorporating vintage or meaningful textiles is understanding their structure, I explained, demonstrating on a piece of fabric positioned under the camera. You want to honor the original material while integrating it seamlessly into the new design. The demonstration area was packed, with people standing 3 deep around the perimeter. Many were taking notes or recording on their phones as I shared techniques for evaluating fabric integrity, creating balanced compositions, and executing precise hand-finishing details. In the front row, my family watched attentively. Even Emma, who normally performed interest rather than actually feeling it, seemed genuinely engaged. My father was recording the entire presentation on his phone. A man who once dismissed my business as a hobby, now documenting my expertise with unmistakable pride. After the demonstration, I moved to a beautifully arranged signing table. Store associates handed out catalogs featuring my collection, while customers lined up for a chance to speak with me. Some brought family heirlooms, asking about possibilities for transformation pieces. Others shared stories of their own creative journeys, inspired by what they'd seen on the homestyle segment. "I've been sewing for 40 years, an elderly woman told me, her eyes bright with excitement. "Watching you last night made me feel like handcraft isn't dying after all. It's evolving, becoming something new and beautiful." A young couple approached with their catalog already dough-geared. "We're redoing our living room," the woman explained. "We want to build the entire design around your heritage collection. The way you blend traditional techniques with modern aesthetics, it's exactly what we've been looking for." As the line continued, I caught glimpses of my family circulating through the store. My mother was proudly telling anyone who would listen that she was the designer's mother. Michael was deep in conversation with Lawrence, probably discussing digital marketing strategies. Vanessa and Jacob were examining the transformation line display, perhaps considering commissioned pieces for their home. And my father was standing slightly apart, watching it all with an expression I couldn't quite read, something between wonder and contemplation. The day stretched on, a blur of conversations, photos, and connections. By the time the event officially ended, my voice was hoarse and my cheeks ached from smiling, but the energy of the day carried me through. Lawrence found me as the last customers were leaving. "Phenomenal success," he declared. "Social media? Engagement off the charts. The CEO was impressed. He wants to meet for dinner tonight to discuss future opportunities." "Tonight?" I glanced at my family, who were waiting nearby. Lawrence followed my gaze. "Family dinner?" "Something like that." "Bring them along," he suggested. 7 o'clock at Spiaggia. The CEO's treating. It'll be good for him to see your support system." After Lawrence left to make arrangements, I joined my family. "That was incredible," Vanessa said. "You were incredible. People were hanging on." "Your every word," Michael added. "You're a natural presenter." My father cleared his throat. "I counted over 300 people at that signing. Most businesses would kill for that kind of customer engagement." "Dinner tonight?" I asked, relaying Lawrence's invitation. "The CEO of Homestyle wants to discuss expanding our partnership." "Of course we'll come," my mother exclaimed. "Won't we, Richard?" My father nodded. "We wouldn't miss it. This is a significant business opportunity, Claire. The kind that builds careers." Spiaggia was one of Chicago's finest restaurants with panoramic views of Lake Michigan and a reputation for impeccable service. We were seated in a private dining room where James Chen, the CEO of Homestyle Collections, greeted us warmly. "The Collins family. Lawrence has told me so much about all of you." He shook hands with each person as I made introductions. "Claire, the response to your collection has been nothing short of extraordinary. You've clearly struck a nerve in the marketplace." As the meal progressed, James outlined his vision for expanding the Stitch and Story brand within the Homestyle ecosystem. "We're thinking exclusive designer collections, seasonal releases, potentially a dedicated retail space within our flagship stores." My father, in his element among business discussions, asked insightful questions about market projections, production capacities, and growth strategies. I watched with a mixture of amusement and appreciation, as he essentially conducted an impromptu business analysis. "You've built a solid foundation," he said to James, gesturing toward me. "Claire's design sensibility is unique, and her understanding of both traditional techniques and contemporary aesthetics creates a distinctive market position." James nodded in agreement. "Exactly why we're so excited about this partnership. In an industry saturated with mass-produced mediocrity, authenticity stands out. What Claire has created isn't just products. It's a philosophy, a connection to something meaningful." I caught Vanessa's eye across the table. She raised her wine glass slightly in a private toast, a small smile playing at her lips. After dinner, as we waited for our cars at the valet stand, my father pulled me aside. "I was wrong about your business, Claire. Not just about its commercial potential, but about its value." He looked out at the city lights reflecting on the lake. "I always measured success in such limited ways. Numbers, titles, conventional prestige. You wanted security for me," I said, remembering our conversation months ago. "A good life." "Yes, but I failed to consider that a good life means different things to different people." He turned to face me fully. "You found your path. A path that honors your talents, brings you fulfillment, and as it turns out, offers exactly the kind of security and success I was concerned about, just packaged differently than I expected." Coming from my father, this was profound. Richard Collins didn't admit mistakes easily, nor did he readily adjust his worldview. "Thank you, Dad. That means a lot." "I'm proud of you, Claire. Not because of tonight or the TV appearance or the commercial success, though those are certainly impressive. I'm proud of your conviction, your willingness to follow your vision even when no one else could see it clearly." He smiled, a hint of sheepishness in his expression. "Especially when no one else could see it." 6 months later, I stood in the expanded Stitch and Story studio, now occupying the entire 3rd floor of the Pilsen building. The original space had quickly proved inadequate as our operations scaled to meet demand. We now employed 27 people full-time, including 5 members of the immigrant cooperative who had advanced to leadership positions within our production team. "The holiday collection samples are ready for your approval," May announced, entering my office with a rolling rack of finished pieces. Our successful partnership with Homestyle had expanded to include 4 seasonal collections per year, along with a premium custom line available through select retailers. "These look fantastic," I said, examining the detailed embroidery on a series of stockings designed to become family heirlooms. "The metallic thread integration is perfect. The team really outdid themselves." She consulted her tablet. "Also, the magazine feature is confirmed for next month. They want to photograph both the studio and your apartment for a day in the life spread." My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "Finalizing Mom and Dad's anniversary party details. Still, need your head count for the welcome dinner Friday night." My parents' 40th anniversary celebration was approaching, a weekend-long affair that Emma was planning with her typical attention to detail. This time, however, she'd actually consulted me on several design elements, acknowledging that textiles and table settings were more my area of expertise than hers. "One more thing," May added as she was leaving. "Your father called. The investment group is ready to present their offer whenever you're available to meet." After much consideration, I'd decided to accept outside investment to fuel Stitch and Story's expansion. My father had assembled a group of investors who understood my vision and were committed to maintaining the brand's integrity while providing the capital needed for growth. It was a measure of how far we'd come that he now approached my business with the same seriousness he gave to any major investment opportunity. Later that evening, I hosted a small dinner at my new loft, a light-filled space in a converted warehouse not far from the studio. Vanessa and Jacob arrived first, followed by Michael and Sophia, then my parents. Emma and Antoine had sent their regrets, busy with final preparations for a major charity gala. To Claire, my father toasted once everyone was seated at the harvest, table I'd designed myself, featuring a runner from my first collection. Who reminded us all that success comes in many forms, and the most meaningful kind is built on passion and authenticity. To Claire, they echoed, raising their glasses. As conversation flowed around me, Vanessa describing her latest surgical innovation, Michael detailing his app's international expansion, my mother recounting her garden club's recent competition, victory. I felt a deep sense of contentment. They were still the same ambitious, achievement-oriented family they'd always been. I was still the same creative, independent spirit I'd always been. But something fundamental had shifted in how we understood and valued each other's choices. It had taken a television appearance and commercial success to bridge that gap, to translate my creative pursuit into terms my family could comprehend. While part of me wished they could have seen the value without external validation, I'd come to accept that sometimes bridges need to be built from both sides. After dinner, as my mother and I washed dishes side by side, she still insisted on helping, no matter how many times I told her guests shouldn't clean. She paused, hands deep in soapy water. "I've been thinking about your grandmother's sewing box," she said. "The one she left you, that started all this." "What about it?" "She always said you were the only one who truly appreciated beautiful things, who understood the value of creating with your hands." She smiled softly. "I didn't understand then. I do now." Later, after everyone had left, I stood on my balcony overlooking the city lights. In the distance, I could see the illuminated Michigan Avenue where the home-style Flagship store now featured a permanent stitch and story boutique. My designs had found their way into thousands of homes across the country. My business employed people who took pride in their craft. My family finally respected the path I'd chosen. But most importantly, I had built something true to myself. A business that honored creativity, craftsmanship, and connection in a world that often devalued all three. The external success was gratifying. Yes. The family validation was healing in ways I hadn't expected. Yet the deepest satisfaction came from knowing I'd stayed true to my vision when it would have been easier to abandon it. That I'd transformed just a hobby into a thriving business without sacrificing the passion and purpose that had inspired me to start. My phone lit up with a text from Lawrence. "Spring collection concept approved by the board. They're calling it our signature line now. Congratulations, Claire. You've officially built a heritage brand." I smiled, remembering the words I'd spoken during that home-style interview that had changed everything. I want to create a modern heritage brand, one that honors traditional craftsmanship while embracing contemporary design. That dream, once dismissed as unrealistic, had become reality. Not because I'd compromised or conformed to others' expectations, but because I'd remained steadfast in my belief that meaningful work finds its audience eventually. As I turned to go inside, I caught sight of my reflection in the balcony door. Not the uncertain woman who had stood frozen in the doorway of her apartment 3 years ago, questioning her choices, but someone who had found her purpose and her voice. They had mocked my little side business at the family dinner. They had dismissed my passion as a hobby, my determination as stubbornness, my vision as impractical. They had been wrong, and now they knew it. But the victory wasn't in proving them wrong. It was in proving myself right, in creating something that mattered, something authentic, something entirely my own. And in that creation, I had not only built a successful business, but had also bridged the gap between who my family thought I should be and who I truly was. That, more than any television appearance or business success, was the real achievement. The one that would sustain me through whatever challenges and opportunities lay ahead.